A lot of us think about saving for retirement, right? But how many of us have an actual formula to guide our decisions? Well, we found an investor who does. Today, we're going to break down their personal system for managing their retirement funds, and it all started with one simple but really important question they asked themselves.
So this is it. This is the question that kicked off this whole strategy. Now the answer isn't just a list of stocks or funds, it's a system. And before we just throw a bunch of math at you, we've got to understand the motivation behind it. Because really, to get the formula, you have to get the goal first.
Okay, so let's start with the why. Because any truly smart financial plan doesn't begin with spreadsheets and numbers. It starts with a personal goal. Let's see what this investor is aiming for. Their target here isn't just to retire someday. It's to retire early, 7 years ahead of the standard retirement age is 65. Now that one little detail changes the whole game. It's not some vague hope, it becomes a hard deadline. And that puts a ton of pressure on the investment strategy to really deliver.
58. That's the magic number. See, putting a specific age on it makes the goal feel real, tangible. Every single financial decision from this point on is basically worked backwards to hit this exact target. So with that number locked in, let's take a look at the assets being used to get there.
All right, it's time to pop the hood and see what's actually powering this thing. What exactly is in this portfolio? Understanding all the pieces is absolutely crucial before we can get to the formula that makes them all work together. Okay, so here's a snapshot of the portfolio. The first thing to know is that this only covers liquid assets. Stuff that can be turned into cash pretty easily. So we're not looking at any property here. The strategy really zeroes in on two main things: Singapore-based REITs, which are basically companies that own properties that make money, and a few different unit trusts, which are kind of like baskets holding a bunch of different investments. Now, what's so telling about this chart is how it really simplifies where the money is. Look at that. Over 60% of the entire portfolio is packed into just 3 main holdings. The biggest chunk, over 30%, is in that group of REITs, and that's followed by 2 specific funds, the FSA Dividend Advantage Fund and the Singapore Dividend Equity Fund. This gives us a super clear picture of where the financial weight really is. This is so important. This is not a set it and forget it kind of strategy. Nope, this investor is actively involved making moves, and on this one particular day, a really big change is made to get more direct control over the assets.
And here's what that active management looks like in the real world. The investor decided to close their CPF investments, that's Singapore's National Retirement Savings Plan, and pull out all their holdings. Why? Well, it all comes down to getting more flexibility and direct control. And you can see just how much was tied up in that FSAA fund alone. This wasn't some minor adjustment. It was a huge strategic move to take full command of the investment plan.
So we've covered the why, that early retirement goal. And we've seen the what, the specific assets in the wallet. Now let's get into the how. What's the mindset, the core philosophy that's guiding every single one of these decisions? This quote from the investor, it just says everything. It's such a powerful way to look at it. Retirement isn't just about clocking out for the last time. It's the moment your assets officially take over the job of earning an income. That right there, that fundamental belief is the engine driving this entire thing.
And that big idea, that philosophy, it breaks down into 3 very clear, very practical priorities. Number 1, reduce risk. Number 2, focus on sustainable returns. We're not just chasing quick, flashy wins here. And finally, number 3, manage everything properly. These are basically the 3 pillars holding up the whole early retirement plan.
And now, we've arrived at the very heart of this explainer. We've set the stage, right? We have the goal, we've seen the assets, we understand the philosophy. So it's finally time to reveal the specific mathematical formulas this investor uses to manage the portfolio and track all that progress. Okay, here's the first formula, and it solves a really tricky problem. How do you know what your initial investment, your principal, actually is when you've been buying things over a long period of time? This formula helps estimate that starting value for the stock holdings. It works by using a benchmark fund, the STSE, as a sort of measuring stick. Put simply, it helps the investor answer the question, based on how the market is doing, roughly how much did I put in to get what I have today? It creates a baseline, and that is absolutely crucial for measuring performance. So that first formula gives us our starting point. This second formula builds right on top of it. It's designed to answer a different and maybe even more important question. How hard is my money really working for me? See, it totally ignores the day-to-day roller coaster of market prices and focuses only on the actual cash that gets paid out as dividends.
By dividing the dividends you get in a year by that principal we just estimated, you get a clear percentage of your actual cash-on-cash return. This is the ultimate test of whether the portfolio is doing its job of generating passive income.
And you've heard me mention a benchmark a couple of times. For this whole system to actually mean something, you need a standard to compare it against. Think of it like a yardstick. In this case, that yardstick is the Amorva Singapore Dividend Equity Fund, or ASDE. The performance of this fund is what our investor measures their own success against. It's how they know, objectively, if their personal strategy is actually beating the market or not.
So there you have it. We've just deconstructed one investor's very personal, very methodical system, a super clear goal, a well-defined portfolio, and a specific formula to measure success. It really goes to show that some of the smartest investing isn't just about what you own, but about how you measure it, which kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. If you had to write it down, what's the personal formula that truly defines your own financial goals?